Hi guys, it's Tracy from Entrepreneur Girl, and today we're going to continue our book review on Retail Arbitrage by Chris Green. And I love this book, so I'm really excited to be getting back to it. It's been a little bit, and we are going to cover chapter 6. So Chris is saying that the only thing that matters for price, the only thing that establishes a price is supply and demand. No other factors go into the price point except for supply and demand. And if you remember high school economics, that's what they teach you, that as the supply increases and there's more and more of it available to a buyer, the price decreases. And as the demand increases, as people want it more and more and more, the price increases. And as the demand, if they don't really care, decreases, then the price decreases as well. So you can see how supply and demand directly affect the price of an item. He wants you to remember that 3 points really. The first thing is that different buyers put different values on the exact same item. So I kind of liken this to, I'm a girl, I love pillows, and I might be willing to pay anywhere from $0 to $20 for a pillow. Well, you're a guy, you may hate pillows and think, I'm not willing to pay over $1 for those. So you and I would be different, and we would be willing to pay different amounts for the exact same pillow. So he's saying that at a regular store like Home Depot or a store that you could just walk into, they all pretty much are the same price. They're at this equilibrium price, again from economics. They're trying to balance, because if they're too high in their price, they're going to lose sales. But if they're too low in their price, they're going to lose profits. So they're trying to see this perfect balance of having good sales and good profits called equilibrium. And that's where they stay. So for the most part, you're going to walk into a grocery store and get milk for $3 a gallon because that's the equilibrium. That's the going rate for milk. And same thing with Home Depot. Pretty much you're going to go in and get a saw for $25, and you kind of expect to pay that same amount of money, that same $25 every time you buy a saw. Well, it's not the same when you consider eBay and Amazon. And that's because there's this intrinsic value that you see online that you don't really see in Home Depot. People aren't walking around. They're not asking me, well, Tracy, how much are you willing to pay for a saw? Because I'm going to be like, ew, like $5. And to a guy, they're going to be like, wow, that's a really cool saw. I'll pay you $50. It's just the equilibrium between the two of us, that kind of going rate that you would expect to see at the store. But online to international sellers, the value is going to change drastically between person to person. So he wants you to know that. He also wants you to know that typically a person is willing to pay a range. You know, like that gallon of milk. I'm not in there going, okay, well, I'm going to pay $3, but I'm not going to pay $3.01 or $3.10. No, it's more like a range. I'm willing to pay a range of a price versus just a single price. Okay, the second point that he wants to make is supply, demand, and price are always changing. So when you look on your little scanning apps and you're checking out a price for an item, you're actually getting a picture of what that item is worth at that particular time. Not what it was worth last week or what it's going to be worth next week, what it's worth right now. And that is always changing. And I think sometimes we forget that. I know in my own YouTube videos, if I made a video 2 months ago and I'm talking about these cool bracelets I found and I can sell them for $15, and you're looking at the video 2 months later and you're going, what is she talking about? Those aren't going for $15, they're going for $9. And you send me this letter because you're upset that I said 15 when it was 9, not thinking that I made that video a couple of months ago. So that's the thing with price points, is that they're constantly changing, and it will depend on the supply, how much is out there, how much is available, and the demand, how much are people wanting this or not wanting this. And those items are constantly changing, so it's constantly changing the price point. And you need to be mindful that it's not a forever thing that you're seeing, it's just that snippet of time. He says that demand will go up if an item like say a manufacturer increases their advertising. You see that at Christmas time a lot. All those advertisements for toys, and then the parents are wanting to buy those toys for the kids that are like, I want that, I want that. And so the demand goes up because of Christmas and because the parents want to buy that for their kids. So that would be an example of it changing for Q4 because the demand is changing. Also, if you get a poor online review, then that could alter the demand in a negative way. So people are reading that review and they're like, ew, I don't want that. That sounds like it's a bad product. So the demand will decrease. And those are just examples of how they could be altered. The third thing he wants you to consider is time, the concept of times. As I find a deal, like say my bracelets example, I'm going to flood the Amazon market with my bracelets. I'm not changing the supply of the bracelets worldwide. I didn't manufacture them. I didn't create them. I just found them and put them on Amazon. So while I'm not changing the supply worldwide, I'm changing the supply on Amazon, which is our forum. And that's really important to remember because as my bracelets flood the market, the price is going to go down. But as my bracelets start selling off and the supply is getting smaller and smaller, then the prices are going to start to go back up. And so that's important to remember because we have our own little community that is constantly be affected by this at any given time. And if you're scanning and you're like, wow, there's lots of FBA sellers selling these bracelets right now, I'm going to, just kind of put them in the garage and, focus on other things and sell other things. And then you come back to the bracelets and you're like, oh, okay, the price is up, I'm willing to sell it. Or maybe you just go ahead and list it for a higher price, realizing that the prices are going to start to increase at some point. He goes on to talk about price gouging. And he says if you've done this long enough, which I know I've experienced and probably you have too, you run into people that think resellers are price gouging or taking advantage of other people and selling items for higher than their manufacturer listed price, those MSRPs. Those are the suggested retail prices from the manufacturers, and some people believe that it should never go above that or you're taking advantage of the buyer. Well, Chris says that he finds that this is ridiculous because supply and demand determine price and no other factors. So if you have a free market like we have here in America, where buyers and sellers are free to make their own transactions as long as they agree on the price of the sale. And everybody enters into that happily and of their own free will. So an example he gives is that when we are purchasing things, if I want to buy like that pillow, I have to want it more than I want the money in my pocket. And if I do, then I make the purchase happily, right? That's how it works with every transaction. Well, he was using the milk example, and that, if you find if you love milk and it's really important to you and you can't imagine life without milk, you might be willing to pay upwards of $10 a gallon happily to have milk. But if you were someone that was allergic to milk, perhaps you would be willing to pay $0 for it. So it doesn't mean that someone is gouging you if they're charging $10 a milk. If there's limited supply, there's limited supply. I mean, there's nothing they can do but offer you the product for the price point that they can offer it to you for, and then it would be your decision to determine whether you wanted to purchase that or not. He said, consider when items go into short supply. How about after a hurricane when demand for generators are really high? Stores like Home Depot don't raise their prices, but it creates a shortage because demand outweighs the limited supply. An individual who is not bound by any agreements, the way that Home Depot is free to sell their spare generator on the open market for any price that they are able to get. The generator may have been purchased for $500, but they could put it on Craigslist for $2,000. Because of the high demand and low supply, the price will go up. What if there had been no hurricane? Would the buyer be able to get $2,000? Of course not. any buyer could just go to Home Depot and purchase one off the shelf. It's a difference of not just price, but availability. Home Depot selling at a price of $500 on a generator is not much use if they are not in stock. So who is the buyer who pays $2,000 for a $500 generator? The buyer who places a personal value of $2,000 or more on having a generator today rather than a few weeks when Home Depot gets more in stock. They are paying a premium, but they are able to enjoy the utility of the product during a period of time when it was not attainable at the price point of $500. This is not price gouging. This is price being set by a supply and demand at any single point in time with all external factors considered. Even at a price of $2,000, there may be a demand at even a higher price. The seller may sell for $2,000 only to get a call for an offer of $2,500 or $3,000. Items go into short supply for many reasons. This happens every year with popular toys. Okay, so he kind of ends with an example, a personal example of his, where he likes this older model of sunglasses. And he can't buy them in the store anymore because they're an older model, they've been discontinued, but he finds them online and it's higher than what he was paying before by a little bit, but he happily pays it because he's just glad that someone is offering these sunglasses that he loves so much. So he's willing to pay and he's thankful, to have had them. So he says, you know that feeling when you get a good deal, when you found something that you wanted and you were able to get it for a lot less than expected. But a good deal could also be when the seller is happy with the price that they paid because they couldn't get the item any other way. So a good deal is not just about price. A good deal can be perceived by people because they weren't able to find it or, for other reasons. And they could still walk away happy that they got a good deal, even if they paid above manufacturer's suggested retail price, those MSRPs. He ends the chapter by saying that I believe most people who complain about this are misdirecting their frustration at themselves for not doing it themselves and making money in the process. Where's the proof? If they really wanted to, they could buy the same hot toys and resell them at cost to all the people that they think they are protecting. But they will quickly see that the time and effort surrounding a reseller is not free. They'll run into buyers who are willing to pay more, but will happily pay less. They may even sell to a reseller. So what he's saying is that we put a lot of work into what we do. We have to go out and find, we have to scan, we have to pay for those scanning apps. We scan the items, it takes time in the store, we purchase them, we bring them home, we have to list them, and that takes hours. We have to sticker them and label them and put them in special bags. All of that takes money. And then we have to ship them off, which takes money. So we can't just sell them for under cost out of goodwill. The same as a doctor or an attorney or any other job out there makes an income for the services they provide. We as resellers do that same thing. And so we're not price gouging, we're providing a service and we're getting paid for the service that we provide. And the way that we set our numbers on Amazon is based on supply and demand at any given time. So that was chapter 6 in a nutshell. And chapter 7, I think we're really starting to get to the meat because it's talking about scanning apps and starting to get into like how we acquire that inventory, which is really useful information. So now I think we kind of have a base knowledge of why, and now we're going to get into the how. So I think that's great. So stay tuned. I'm going to try to get back on track with this so we can get through this book and get busy with our Amazon selling. So until next time, until chapter 7, thanks guys and have a good week. Bye.